Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Light to Unite pre-recorded college and university session of our entire program. I'm happy to welcome Rabbi David Markowitz, of the Executive Vice President of Olami, an amazing organization, Yehuda Farber, a Director of Torah Links in Lakewood, New Jersey, which is the outreach for BMG for all of their Kirev movement, and a very special guest of Shabbos Kastabaum, who is a very unique Jewish Harvard student who's an activist fighting anti-Semitism on campus and taking on Harvard in a major lawsuit to go after them regarding all the anti-Semitism that's been taking on. This is an amazing group of people. And this area of college and universities is really where right now it's the biggest stress for the Jewish people in the United States. It's the most violent, and this is one of the areas that we're addressing, and we hope it moves, inspires you to support our college students and their families. Thank you. Enjoy the event.
Okay, my name is David Markowitz. I'm the Executive Vice President of Vision and Partnerships at Olami. Olami is working across the world in 30 countries, but in North America in particular, on 100 campuses, servicing tens of thousands of students. And since October 7th, we were surprised, and we were surprised many times. The first surprise was obviously October 7th. The whole world was surprised. The Jewish people were devastated. Soon after that, where we thought that the world would come together, unite behind the Jewish people and everything that befell us, we were surprised. How could it be that people were coming out against the Jewish people? On what basis? Why are Jewish kids on campus facing anti-Semitism at a moment when they most expected to be supported? And so people were surprised yet again. And then only a few months later, things seemed to quiet down. And maybe it would pass. And maybe it was a moment, yet a blip on the screen. And then just around Pesach time, we were surprised yet again. An encampment started. They started taking over buildings and threatening language and assaults and attacks, and 40 people were hospitalized in UCLA in one night. What was going on? Why do we keep getting surprised? And this is a question that we have to keep asking ourselves, particularly now. A critical moment as we stand right before October 7th yet again, right before Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, the holiday season, a season where last year we were celebrating and dancing together, only to then follow with a year of tragedy and so much challenge that we've been facing and continue to face. And so we have to think now in this moment. This is a moment when we have to take a pause and say, are we going to be surprised yet again? We can't. Somehow we have to learn the lessons, not of history of thousands of years ago. Of course, we always say we should learn the lessons of history of thousands of years ago. But let's at least learn the lessons of history from this year. There are so many lessons, so many moments of surprise that cause us to pause and think, wait a second, what's going on over here? What did we miss? What do we continuously miss in the story? And as we look back and we think about where were the great moments in the year? Where were the moments that we felt strength, we felt support, we felt happiness, we felt joy amidst all of the challenges? And those were clearly the moments when we came together. And while it's true that right after October 7th, there was so much anti-Semitism, there was a brief window right in the middle, if you remember, a brief window. But there was a really important window right after October 7th, when so many Jews showed up. So many people showed up for vigils and crying and praying. People that we've never seen on campus before were showing up on campuses in hundreds, thousands, to be together. In that moment, we felt strength, we felt support amidst all of that pain. And then the language, that song of B'yachad Ninatzeach started to emerge from Israel. Together we will win. Together we will prevail. And there was this energy. People felt it. Yes, we are going to come together. We are going to succeed. The Jewish people will continue to live on and be strong. Somehow that narrative started to fade away. You didn't hear it as much. And all of a sudden, encampments. And they're coming out against us yet again. How could it be? And consistently throughout all the generations of the Jewish people, the secret to our survival and our success has been to come together. When we unite, we spread the light in the whole world. And the world understands, respects, and celebrates the Jewish people's unity. It was our unity at Sinai when we came together as one people in one heart. It was our unity in the story of Purim when we came together and we recognized that this was our moment. It was our unity around October 7th that helps us to get through that pain and suffering. And it's our unity that we need now more than ever. We cannot wait until the next tragedy, God forbid, it should never come, to wake us up yet again to be united. It is our responsibility to stand up against this hate. And so as we reflect on the last year and we think about what was happening on the campuses, we think about students from Colombia who were pinned up against the wall, a young man, Noah, who says that he was surrounded by an angry mob of 50 anti-Israel, anti-Semitic protesters. And one of them held his head against the wall and he thought, I am about to be stabbed. I'm going to be killed. My parents are going to find me dead in the news. Or another young man, Eli in Colombia, who said he was chased off of campus by 500 angry protesters, scared for his life in Columbia University. But it's not only in the famous campuses of Harvard and Columbia and Penn that faced such rabid anti-Semitism. It was all across the United States. And so as we look into this next year, so many people expected, we're coming into the fall semester and all the encampments are going to start again. And yet again, look at that. We're surprised. No encampments. Maybe it went away. Maybe anti-Semitism won't show its head anymore. And now we could just go back to being the regular people that we wanted to be. But this is our moment. This is the most important moment when we need to stand shoulder to shoulder, people together, uniting the light and spreading that light to the whole world. We have to think about what this new year is going to be. It's a moment of judgment. Yes, we have Rosh Hashanah as a day of judgment, but the real judgment is, are we together in this? When the people are looking at us, they're asking the question, are you guys for real? Are you guys serious about this whole Jewish people thing? Is this who you really are? One people with one heart? Or, okay, yeah, you want to be in a land occupied. Who are you for real? And this is a moment we have to dig deep. We have to ask ourselves that inner question. Do we see each other as one family, one people united together? Look to the person to your right and to your left, person a little bit different, and ask yourself, can I get together with that person? Can I build my relationship a little closer? Can we spread some light together? Put our candles together. Not just me lighting a candle and you lighting a candle, but when we put our candles together, we form a torch. We create something that is so much brighter. It's the distinction of the beginning of Shabbat to the end, when we start Shabbat with two individual separate candles, and by the end of Shabbat, we come together at Havdalah with one torch. Some synthesis has happened. We go through an experience, and now we come out with something so much brighter, so much stronger. And so in the face of the greatest anti-Semitism that we've seen in our generation, after what we heard from our grandparents' generation of the Holocaust, let this be the end to that story and the beginning to a new, beautiful chapter. A year that brings the unity of the Jewish people in all of its glory. This evening, Jews all around the world are coming together to light a candle. Step up and join us. Be part of spreading this light around the world. It should be somewhere around 8 p.m., just where you are, as this is broadcast around the world. So join us, each person around 8 p.m. in their locale, and light a candle. Not just you. Find a family member, a friend, do it together. Light more candles, spread the light, spread more light than we ever could have imagined, because now, more than ever, we need to dispel the darkness, and the way we do that is by lighting together. Join us and light to unite.
Thank you so much to Chazaq and to my fellow panelists and to all the co-sponsors of this really fantastic, the Light to Unite project. Well, I know it sounds corny, but Chazaq, keep on doing amazing things. I have the privilege to work for Total Links, which is a curative organization based in Lakewood. Doing this for about 25 years, and seen a lot in the terms of curative outreach, and had the opportunity to go ahead and really observe the comings and goings of the Jewish community. And what I can say is that, from my little small snapshot of 25 years, we're facing, when I say we, this is not just Total Links as an organization, and it's not just the curative world, but I believe the entire Jewish community is really facing something that we're in an unprecedented time. And unprecedented, you can go back, we certainly can go back to the United States, the community, the American Jewish community post-war. You may even go back beyond that, but let's focus on the post-war community. I was privileged to be born in the early 70s. Parents and grandparents were survivors. But, you're talking about grandparents, parents, myself, my kids, my I've seen 5 generations of American Jews. And frankly, this is the first time since I'm around, and since anything I've heard from my parents and my grandparents, that we're actually experiencing real anti-Semitism. For Jewish communities throughout the world, particularly in Europe, this may not be as big a paradigm shift. But in America, let's be honest, even as an FFB, as somebody who was raised to be frum and went to yeshiva my whole life, but I was an American, can get very similar to Richie Machado and JP, who were Salvatore, who were my neighbors in Midwood and Flatbush. Felt very, very, very much at home. And I remember older European Jews who talked about anti-Semitism, and as much as we believed and as much as we understand bashkafically that that's a reality, but we really kind of thought like this was it. Like we had seen the worst, and eventually we're just going to sail into Mashiach. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, we don't know what the Rebbeinu Shalom's, what his plan is and what the reason is. But now it's real. Now we're actually going ahead and seeing anti-Semitism. And it's an anti-Semitism that is clearly unsettling the American Jewish population, like nothing I think any of us have seen before. For so many Jews, again, for us, those of us that are privileged to be FFB and to have lived somewhat sheltered lives, so in as much as we're engaged in the American Jewish scene, but we still have our shuls, our kehilas, our yeshivas, so it may not be as jarring. But what if you're a non-frum Jew? What if you're somebody who doesn't really, you have very little Jewish identity, or your Jewish identity is gefilte fish, or being bageled, or Israel, whatever that means. But for all practical purposes, you really view yourself as just an American, like everybody else who happens to have this thing called being a Jew. And now all of a sudden, particularly in the more elite parts of our society, which is where American Jewry gravitates, we're highly educated, for the most part, highly successful. And all of a sudden, it's particularly in the higher level of society where we are experiencing the most anti-Semitism. And for an American Jew, that is really jarring. It is really something that I've seen in the last 10, 11 months, whatever it is, since October 7th, like nothing I've ever seen. I've seen moms drive up to Total Links to bring their college-age young men for a summer program here. Women who would clearly have never allowed their children to come to a kiruv program. If they think we have horns, and I don't blame them. We're the Taliban, right? So they can't relate to us. But yet I would see mom after mom who would a little suspicious, a little wary, would drive up, see that we're friendly, and I would see why. Ultimately, they would tell us pretty much straight up, why would they be depositing their son with us for 6 to 7 to 8 weeks? And it was always the same thing. It's because they experience so much hatred, and they're such outcasts in many areas. They have to hide their Judaism, and they have to make believe they're not Jews. They know one thing: here, they're going to find love, they're going to find warmth, they're going to be embraced. And it's unbelievable. I've somebody, one of my students used this term, and I think talk about a paradigm shift. Many of us, when you hear the term a safe space, so a safe space, it alludes to many interesting connotations. Certainly, those that are on the political right don't exactly look at a safe space as something that of substance. Here, all of a sudden, I have students, secular students, non-religious students, who are coming into our community and saying this is a safe space. When a young man or a young woman or an older man or an older woman, but if a Jew comes into a frum community, they're safe and they're warm and they're loved. And I don't know if that's something that we fully appreciate. And frankly, so this is not a Torah Links message. This is not a Kiruv message. I think for the first time in my life, we talk about Jewish unity. We really have that opportunity. We've always had that opportunity, obviously. But this is the first time that the broader Jewish community really wants it and needs it. And frankly, if we as Torah Jews would really understand that, we could bring Mashiach tomorrow. And I know it sounds cliche and it sounds like, lofty, and I'm not some Kabbalist saying it from esoteric terms. That's always true, obviously. But if you really, you constantly think, but how are we really going to bring everybody together? How are we going to take millions and millions of Jews who've been so disenfranchised from each other and so distant and have so little to do with each other? How are we going to ever b'derech hateva go ahead and do that? Are we going to need like the proverbial eagles to go ahead and all of a sudden Mashiach to show up on a white donkey? Is that the way it's going to happen? Maybe it will. There are many shittas that's not. It's not. There's nothing going to be shaloi k'derech hateva. So if you take the shaloi k'derech hateva out, if you take the miracles out, so how's it going to happen? But I think today, as catastrophic as October 7th was, and as painful as it was, and as painful as it still is to so many people, to all of us, but at the same time, Hashem is giving us an opportunity which is just unbelievable. If we would realize it, just every Jew today wants to hug another Jew. That's just the bottom line. And really, we all do. We all realize nobody else cares about us. Yes, there are some Hasidim Messiahim who've been tremendous friends to us, and there always will be. But we got to realize that that's the exception to the norm. The reality is, we are the Am HaNivchar, and we are proud of it. And the way for us to survive is the way we always survive. What do? We take them going and pointing whatever it is at us, and we turn it around and we wear it as a source of pride. Those Holocaust people, the people who lived through the Holocaust, they took the Star of David and they turned it into a source of pride. And realize that's what every Jew wants. So that's my optimistic view at this somewhat scary point and unsettling point for all of us. But I think the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving us an opportunity. The Ezra Hashem, we should be mispal that each and every one of us grabs this opportunity, and we can. And Be'ez Hashem, we will.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I'm a proud first-generation American, certainly a proud religious Jew. And as I always say, I'm the proud plaintiff suing Harvard University for their failure to combat anti-Semitism on their own campus. So I could really spend the next 10 minutes just giving you a laundry list of incidents that have happened at Harvard University alone, about the Jewish student who was spat on for wearing a kippah, the Israeli student who was asked to leave the class because her nationality made others uncomfortable, the staff member who challenged me to debate him as to whether Jews were behind 9/11. And unfortunately, the list really does go on and on. But throughout the last 10 months, irrespective of the incidents, irrespective of the acts of anti-Semitism, what has really propelled and animated my activism is the idea from the Ethics of Our Fathers, the 2nd century rabbinic text of B'makom she'ein nashim hishtadel hayos ish. When there is a place where there are no people, strive to be a man. And I certainly am striving. I'm not there, but my activism has been fueled by my religiosity. And I don't think that had I not had that religious infusion, that connection and attachment to Jewish values, I would really be where I am today. So just a quick story that sort of highlights this was, I of course spoke at the Republican National Convention, but to me, that wasn't really the main story. The main story was what was happening behind the scenes. So I was in the speaker's lounge, really eating chips with Republican politicians and conservative thinkers, which was certainly a interesting experience for me. And all of a sudden, a young woman comes up to me and says, "Okay, your speech is next. You need to come with me. We're going to go backstage." And so we walk down this very long corridor. We're flanked by Secret Service members on our left and right. And we enter into the backstage room, no bigger than 200, maybe 300 feet, a very, very small room. And there are 4 people in that room. There's myself, there's Lee Zeldin, who was the former Republican nominee for New York governor, and there's Omer Nutra's parents. Omer Nutra, of course, is the American Jewish hostage still being held against his will in the Gaza terror tunnels. And I go to Omer Nutra's parents and I say, "There's nothing I can say. In fact, there's nothing I can do. All I want you to know is the courage, the bravery, and the inspiration you have given me on an individual level is something I will never be able to repay for the rest of my life." And with that, I leave the room because I begin crying, and the Republicans had me in makeup, and I start my speech. And of all of the speeches I have given, of all of the people I have met, of all of the places I have been to, I can assure you that not one of them holds a candle to the 2-minute conversation I was privileged to have with Omer Nutra's parents. And it actually reminds me of another story that also happened to have happened that same day, where in the morning, the Republican National Convention sent a driver to pick me up from my hotel, which is a pretty cool sentence. And we went to the convention floor to do what was called a walkthrough. So the Secret Service pats us down. We rehearse the speech from the teleprompter. I'm told this is the stage you will enter from. This is the podium. This is the camera to look at. And my stage manager, a guy by the name of Eric, kept asking me, "Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?" And truth be told, I really didn't. I did not care what my hair and makeup would look like. I didn't particularly care what part of the stage I was meant to sit on or stand on. But as I was leaving, as I was about to enter the taxi, I turned around and I say, "Eric, I actually do have one question. Can you promise me that when I give this speech, the cameras will be able to see my yarmulke, my skull cap? Because irrespective of the words coming out of my mouth, regardless of the substance of the speech, I have 2 friends right now at Harvard University who've stopped wearing their kippah in response to October 7th. I know hundreds of Jewish students across college campuses who've stopped wearing their kippahs, who've taken off their Star of David necklaces, who've ceased their involvement in the Jewish community as a response to October 7th. And I wanted, more than the speech, more than the words, I thought it was imperative that the cameras should see that in the 21st century, not only can and should, but Jews must be wearing their Jewish pride as loudly, as publicly, and as confidently than ever before. And it actually reminds me, when I'm not suing Harvard, I actually study the Holocaust. That's what I'm there to do. I study how religious groups came to terms with genocide. And throughout my studies, there was an individual who I've come across by the name of Abraham Johann Must. Abraham Johann Must was not Jewish. He was a religious leader who became a figure of the anti-war movement really before it was a movement. And one night he's protesting outside of the White House. And a reporter comes up to him and says, "Father Must, I don't really understand. It's 3 a.m. Nixon has gone to sleep. There are no counter-protesters. There's no media. No one knows that you're here. Certainly no one can see what you're doing. Why are you protesting? You're not going to change the country." And Father Must, without missing a beat, looks at this reporter and says, "I'm doing this not to change the country. I'm doing this so the country doesn't change me. So the country doesn't change me." What organizations like Chazaq are doing, especially before the Jewish New Year, before the Day of Atonement, before the high holidays, is reaffirming, loudly, publicly, and confidently reaffirming our Jewish values, reaffirming not only the imperative of combating anti-Semitism, but what makes being Jewish, what makes fighting for Jewish values so thrilling, so engaging, so rewarding. And I can say that I am not the most religious. I've certainly missed many days of tefillin. I am not always the most careful, but I can say without question, after October 7th, I have never been more attached to the land of Israel. I've never felt more connected to the Jewish people, and I've never felt more confident to openly express my Jewish values, certainly in sharp contrast to the values of our ideological adversaries. And I always say that after October 7th, Israel began attacking our enemies by the air, by the sea, and by the land. I'm 5 feet. The IDF doesn't want me, I can assure you. But what I can do is contribute to the battle of ideas. I can fight in the halls of Congress, in the halls of power. I can fight in academia, in the classroom, in media, on social media. And that is a fight that each and every one of us can and should and must be waging, because the reality is we are outgunned and we are outnumbered, and we need your voice in whatever capacity, whatever your talents are. We need every member of the Jewish people to stand up and say, I am Jewish, I am proud to be Jewish, and I am not going anywhere. And as we start the high holidays, as we start an intense spiritual and emotional climax of the year, as we ask Hashem to make us a year very much unlike the year we just experienced, but a year of unity, a year of positivity, a year of growth, a year where we can reunite with our hostages. We must first understand that the step to change and the step to unity begins with us. We must recognize the power and the talent that each and every one of us has internally. And once we can tap into that, once we can be confident in our own strength, will we be able to positively affect our community, our people, and the world. So with that, thank you for elevating, thank you for amplifying the voices and the experiences of, unfortunately, all too many Jewish students across this country, because we are fighting for something that we did not intend. We are fighting for something we did not ask for, but we are fighting nonetheless because we are so proud to be part of the Jewish people. And may Hashem answer our prayers. May he give us a year of health, of happiness, of reunification, wishing each and every one of you a Shana Tova.
We hope you enjoyed the university and college segment. Now we're moving into the pre-recorded ladies segment. I'm pleased to introduce three ladies, three very special ladies. Robin Meyerson, who is the North American Director for the Shabbos Project. Lady I've known for quite some time, and she's just does many, many things really, really well, and has always been a great advisor and collaborator with me. Our second guest, Sevia Wexler, who was born in Israel, lives in Philadelphia now, and has been working with the IDF in various divisions, currently working with raising funds and helping the veterans who are injured. Thank you very much. And our third speaker, Laura Shaw Frank, who's the National Director at the American Jewish Committee, who has a lot of influence in working on Jewish campuses, high schools, and has had a major effect in doing some very, very interesting program. And we thank all three of you for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. So I want to talk a little bit about this amazing event that we're going to do, Light to Unite. There's a mitzvah for the Jewish women to light candles, and that's how we bring more good to the world. And Shabbos of the 27th of September is a special night in the afternoon. That's when we light our candles right before the sun goes down. And it's a mitzvah that we can bring more good to the world. So I want to encourage everybody who's watching this to light, because we want to get 1 million women or more. Why can't we get all the Jewish women of the whole world to light candles on the Shabbos of the 27th? Because that is before this beautiful event that we're going to do on September 29th. Where on that day, we want to light another candle. We want to light a yahrzeit candle because we want to remember the people that we lost in this war that started on October 7th. And why did the war start on October 7th? You know, we don't have all the answers, but we do know that when a war starts on Shabbos, it's because God is talking to us. In fact, God is always talking to us. But the war started on Shabbos because God wants us to know that Shabbos is the greatest gift. There are 613 mitzvahs, but Shabbat is the only one that's considered a gift. And why is it a gift? because it protects us. It refines us. It makes us the best that we can possibly be. And our role as women is to bring the goodness of Shabbos into our homes. Whether you're just starting in Shabbos or whether you've been doing Shabbos your whole life, we can all work on improving our Shabbos. There's actually a source that says that women today are reincarnated souls of women from the time of Mitzrayim or Egypt. That sounds so strange that we would be reincarnated souls. But if you look at today's society, it actually makes a lot of sense. Men are doing women's work, women are doing men's work. It's just so strange. So maybe we are reincarnated souls from that time. And what can we do to fight the evil that's in the world? We can bring more light into the world. And we do that by lighting Shabbos candles. I'm going to tell you a secret. I actually never heard of Shabbos until I was in my late 20s. My parents are Jewish. My grandparents are Jewish. But I never actually heard of Shabbos. I thought Shabbos was on Sundays the first time I heard about it. And I thought it was just for nuns. How can it be? How can that be that I'm Jewish and my parents are Jewish and my grandparents are Jewish? But nobody ever reached out to me. Nobody ever explained it to me. I didn't experience my first authentic Shabbos till I was in my early 30s. And if it wasn't for someone reaching out to me, showing me an authentic Shabbos, I wouldn't have my beautiful 5 children, my beautiful 4 grandchildren. It's such a gift. But I'm just like the 90% of the Jewish women and men in North America who don't know about Shabbos. So I encourage all of you who are watching this today to reach out. When you light your candles on Shabbos, September 27th, and ongoing, reach out to somebody who doesn't know how to light candles. Encourage them, give them some candles. Encourage them to light candles in their home so we can spread the beauty of Shabbos. It's such a gift. Through Shabbos, we can actually become our best self. Tubia mentioned that I work for the Chief Rabbi of South Africa, and I run Shabbos Project North America. And part of our goal with lighting candles this on Shabbos for the 27th leading up is because November 15th and 16th is the Worldwide Shabbos Project, where we want to get every Jew in the entire world to keep Shabbos. And it starts with the women. It starts with the women going and getting some candles and lighting candles in their home, and then slowly, slowly learning more about Shabbos. The Chief Rabbi wrote a book called Shabbat, A Day to Create Yourself. It's not a rules book. It's not a how-to book. It's a book about how to become your best self. And everybody who's watching this today can get the gift from the Chief Rabbi. They can get a copy of this book as a gift because Shabbat is a gift. And when you learn this book, it teaches you about how to refine yourself, how to become your best self, how to refine your character traits and your mindsets. And through Shabbos, that's how you become your best self. And God gave us this gift. So why not think about lighting the candles on the September 27th Shabbos and then lighting a yahrzeit candle to honor the victims who were murdered. And how do we fight the evil that's in the world today? Because we are in a war. We are in a war of good versus evil. This is not about politics. This is not about countries and borders. This is a fight about good versus evil. And the way the women bring more light and more good to the world is through lighting candles and through Shabbos. So I'm going to show you a copy of this book. Everybody can get a copy as a gift from the Chief Rabbi of South Africa. This is the book, Shabbat, A Day to Create Yourself. It's a gift for everybody who wants to learn it. They can learn it at home. You can learn it at work. You can learn it one-on-one. You can learn it with a group. It's going to refine yourself. And please, I implore all of you to light a candle on Shabbos of the 27th and reach out to your fellow Jew to invite them to do the same, and then to light a yahrzeit candle for those that we lost.
So, hello everyone. I'm Tzvia Wexler. I am the National Development Director of Beit HaLochem. Beit HaLochem supports IDF wounded soldiers. Currently, we have in our centers about 62,000 wounded soldiers from previous war, and unfortunately, we are getting 1,000 more coming to receive our support and help. I just want to tell you a few words about myself. For the last almost 3.5 decades. I'm working for Israel and for the IDF and now for the IDF wounded soldiers. I cannot tell you what a privilege to have this mitzvah, to be for those that defend the state of Israel, for those that being there fighting for us to say we have a state of Israel. And if we are talking about the state of Israel, so our program today talks about light and unite. Israel, the state of Israel, is the center that unite all Jewish people from all over the world. So to have this country, we have our defenders, we have our people, our heroes that stand guard 24/7 to assure that we, those that lives in the diaspora, have a place to go, have a place to call our home, Israel. The program that we put together, Light and Unite, is an incredible to bring everybody together and understand how important these days, especially these days, to unite, to be one, to show the example to everyone that does not understand the meaning of being one and strong. If we look at our past as Jewish people, we can find in a different places through the Bible, through our today's days today, that when we unite, we succeed. When we do things together, we have power. If I give you some information about the Am Israel, we can go back to Yetziat Mitzrayim. When people left Israel, when people left Egypt, they left Egypt after they understand that they need to unite, and that was a big success. If we look at what we have today in the state of Israel, the more we unite, the more we get what we want to get. We are all over the world as Jewish people. As Jewish people, we need to be together. We need to work on one thing, especially now, before the holidays. We have to come together and help one another and give as much as we can to bring the light to Am Israel. The history of the country of Israel shows that the country became a country after the Holocaust, after the Am Israel, the Jewish people, suffered so much to understand that we have to unite and have a country, a place to go whenever we want to go, and call it the State of Israel. After all this suffering, we did win, we did succeed, because we have a state, we have a place, we have our Medinat Israel. You can see during the wars of Israel, it was unity. If we did not have a unity during the war, we would not continue to be in this state of Israel. This unity during emergency time is incredible. And I can tell you, even with the work that I do, Beit HaLochem, we have 4 centers. We have one in Tel Aviv, one in Haifa, one in Jerusalem, and one in Be'er Sheva, and soon is going to be one in Ashdod. I gave the number of over 60,000 wounded soldiers. That's a unity, because we bring them under one facility, under one home, to understand that they are all equal, that they can talk about, they don't have to give any reason why they are in this place. All they have to be there and enjoy and rehab and get better and rebuild their life. So everything in our life starts and ends with unity. Unity, when we talk about the project Light and Unite, When we unite, the light comes to us. So when we light this candle that we are talking about in 2 days, like on the September 27, I believe, we are bringing the light to all of us. We are uniting. We are giving Am Israel, the people that wants to understand what's Am Israel and the power of Am Israel, to come together that day, right before Rosh Hashanah, right before the high holidays, that all of us knows how important these days to come together, give, help, and do what best you can do for others. Am Israel also known with their holidays and especially with the Shabbat. We actually every Shabbat unite, because every Shabbat when sun goes down, we all come together and we unite. The family, friends. If we go to the holidays, every holiday, whether it's Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Hanukkah, we always unite. So the tradition of Am Israel, known as unity. Everything we do, we unite. And when we unite, this is when we see the light. This is when we see the power, when we see how we can succeed, how we can get whatever we want. And we can defeat everyone that does not like us. Another thing that I'd like to emphasize on is the unity in the diaspora. In the diaspora, we don't have the privilege that we have in the state of Israel. Because in Israel, when Shabbat comes, you feel it, you smell it, you see, like it's incredible. Everything is Shabbat. Like around 2 o'clock, Friday, everything is stopped. It's so nice to see it. You feel it even if you don't observe it, but you know it's Shabbat. In the diaspora, we have to bring Shabbat to us. In Israel, Shabbat comes to everyone. But in the diaspora, we have to bring Shabbat to us. We have to do everything to understand that this Shabbat bring all of us together. As I said, the unity of Shabbat. So it's very important that we understand that every Shabbat, if we want to do a reset to our mind, in the diaspora, that it's very hard to do because it's not Israel that you can feel it and see it, I think you should start bringing Shabbat to your home. Bring Shabbat to your home and feel it, and feel this unity, feel this incredible gift that us as Jewish people got from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want also to talk about the Jewish people, the Israelis in Israel. These days they're going through such a hard time, whether it's the war in the south, in the north, or even what we see with what's going on within Israel. What's going on within Israel, it's not something that we should continue. We should stop it once for all. We should unite. We should put all the nonsense, all those words that we don't need as of now behind, and understand what's the most important part. The most important part for us is to give hand to one another. And I must talk about my memories from home since I was 5 years old. I'm coming from a home of 7 kids. It was a time that my brothers start to fight with one another. My father saw it and called one of them and say, "Come here, give me your hand." He gave him his hand, and my father goes like that and say, "Ow, Dad, it hurts me." And he said, "Okay, call your brothers." And he called all of us, and each of us put the hand one on top another. And as we did that, my father started to break our hands, but he couldn't. And he said, "You see, this is when you unite, nobody can break you. But when you fight one with another, this is when you can break yourself and break the others. So, with that, I would like to wish all of you here in the diaspora, in Israel, and wherever you are, Shana Tova, happy, healthy, and peaceful New Year to all.
I'm Dr. Laura Shaw Frank, and I direct the American Jewish Committee's Center for Education Advocacy. And in my role there, I oversee all of our work in university spaces and in K through 12 spaces, non-Jewish K through 12 spaces. I work with administrators, university presidents and deans, heads of school, principals, and faculty members and students, all to advance the Jewish people, to create educational spaces that are resilient against anti-Semitism and that are places of Jewish belonging, which, as we all know from the past year, and in fact, really before the past year, our educational institutions have not been that great at. We do a lot of work in educating people about who Jews are, which is a very, very complex and beautiful story of a diverse Jewish community, of a Jewish community connected to the land of Israel over thousands of years, of a Jewish community that is of every race, every ethnicity, every culture, and is unified by a sense of peoplehood. Peoplehood with a capital P, we like to say. So we do an enormous amount of work on educating about Jews and educating about how to identify anti-Semitism and how to combat anti-Semitism. This past week, actually earlier this week, I was honored to be a part of a summit that AJC, together with Hillel International and the American Council on Education, convened for university presidents. And we had over 75 university presidents with us for a day and a half of programming where we spoke about the history of anti-Semitism, and we spoke about how it's presenting in this current moment and how universities can live up to the challenge that this moment faces. And we're going to continue to do that. And continue to work with our K through 12 administrators as well to create these spaces that are inclusive of Jews, that are resilient against anti-Semitism, that understand what anti-Semitism is, even in its more opaque or difficult to define ways and terms that it shows up. We work with Jewish students, empowering them in our Leaders for Tomorrow teen program and in our Campus Global Board campus program, which we give Jewish students pride. We give them a knowledge of who they are, of their identity, and we give them the tools that they need to explain, to talk about anti-Semitism, to engage in dialogue across difference, to talk to those with whom they disagree and who disagree with them, and to try to help emerge more frameworks of understanding that are so much more strong than the frameworks of hate that unfortunately we're seeing all too often on campus. We know that this work is not going to get fixed. We're not going to fix the problem overnight. We're not. And it's very important that we all understand that we're not going to fix the problem overnight. We do believe that through ongoing, careful work, we are going to be able to make change in our educational frameworks in the higher education space, in the K through 12 space, through partnership with university administrators who are willing to be partnered with, through very, very strong advocacy for the Jewish people, through education, and through building of productive dialogue across difference. In this moment of incredible strife and difficulty, anxiety, fear, anger, grief for the Jewish people, I keep finding myself going again and again back to the book of Esther, Megillat Esther, and looking at the character of Esther as a symbol of such strength and as a symbol of what we as diaspora Jews, of particularly diaspora Jewish women, can do in this moment. And I want to talk specifically about a particular moment, a moment when Esther wakes up, is woken up by her uncle Mordechai to become a Jewish leader who changes the world for the Jewish people. So let's just back up for a moment so we can remember what the story of Esther is. It's strange to be talking about the story of Esther now in September when we are thinking about Rosh Hashanah, when we're thinking about a different Jewish holiday. So dig back in your brains for a moment and remember the story of Esther. So Esther ends up marrying the King Ahasuerus in Persia, after he banishes his first wife from the kingdom. And as she's selected to be the queen, her uncle Mordechai, who's been raising her, tells her, Esther, don't tell anyone who you are. Do not tell anyone that you're Jewish. Keep it secret. Just go in there and be the queen. And that's what Esther does. But then, as we all know, Haman, the evil, wicked Haman, gets passed legislation that is going to allow him to commit genocide. It's going to allow him to murder all the Jews of Persia. And when Mordecai finds out about this, he dresses as Jews did in sackcloth and ashes and begins wailing outside the palace gates. Now, Esther is living inside the palace, and she sends out a messenger to Mordecai, and she says, "What are you doing? You have to change your clothes. This is embarrassing. How can you be doing this?" And Mordecai says to her, No. You have to understand that this is what's going on. We are about to be murdered, and it is your job, because you're in the palace, to save us. You have to go into the king." And Esther is terrified. Remember, this is a young woman who has been told by her uncle her whole life, keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone you're Jewish. And now he's all of a sudden changed his mind and says, you have to go into the king and save the Jewish people. So he says to her, you have to go in. And her response is, I haven't been summoned by the king. Only if you're summoned by the king is it okay to go into the king. I haven't been summoned. If I go in there, I might be risking my life. And Mordecai says the following, and I want you to listen carefully to what he says. He says, do not imagine that you, of all the Jews, will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have attained the royal position for just such a crisis. So I want to unpack the 3 sentences that he says to her. First of all, don't imagine that you're going to escape. He's saying to her, you're part of the Jewish people. The Jewish people is in danger. You are a Jew. That means that you too are in danger. You're not going to escape just because you're the queen. And we know throughout Jewish history that that is, of course, the case. And then he says to her that if she keeps silent, that relief and deliverance is still going to come to the Jewish people, but she and her father's house will perish. So the word for perish there in Hebrew is actually the word tovedu, which actually is the Hebrew word for the root lost. So what I believe, I read a rabbinical interpretation of this verse to mean that what Mordecai is saying to her is, if you don't stand up for us now, you're not really part of us. We need you. You will be lost to the Jewish people if you do not stand with us in this moment. And lastly, who knows, perhaps you have attained the royal position for just such a crisis. Esther, you are the one who has access to the king. You are the one who is in the palace, and you are the one who can save us. And what happens right after that, after this incredible speech that Mordecai gives to Esther's servant, who then brings it back to Esther? Esther sends back the most remarkable message. She's completely changed. She says, go, assemble the Jews who live in Shushan, fast on my behalf. Don't eat or drink for 3 days. I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'm going to go into the king, even though it's against the policy. And if I die, then I die. She's completely turned from being a scared girl to being a strong, directed Jewish advocate of a woman because of what Mordecai said to her. So I want to bring this back to the moment that we're in right now. The moment that we're in right now is a moment where each one of us has to think so carefully about what is our palace. Where is the place that you have influence? Is it a school? Is it a workplace? Is it a golf game? Is it a country club? Is it a supermarket you go to? Where is the place that you have access to power? Or you have access to change somebody's mind? Where can you be an Esther? Where is the place that now you know why you have gotten to this place in this moment? The Jewish people needs every single one of us to be an advocate, to be strong, to be proud, to be defiant of those who try to destroy us. So let's look at this Esther, at this incredible, incredible role model that we have, particularly we Jewish women have, and a diaspora Jewish woman who is able to stand up for her people in the most impactful way possible, because of course we know the end of the story. She told the king, And the king reversed Haman's order, and Haman ended up hanged on a tree. And Esther and the Jewish people survived. What is your palace? What is your palace, and where can you be like Esther?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Pachter, and it's an honor to be part of this candle lighting initiative. When I was a little girl, I would light candles, and somebody mentioned to me that the reason that we cover our eyes is because we're not supposed to look at the flame, because God's presence is resting on the flame, and we don't want to look at God. So I'm 12 years old, I'm lighting. What do? I peek. But I didn't see God. And I didn't understand what the person was saying either. But now, years later, I do. And I want to share that idea with you. In the physical world, whenever you give, you have less. If I have a pizza and I decide to give you a piece, I now have one less slice. That's how it works in the physical world. When you give, you have physically less, right? But the flame is the only thing in the physical world that when you give, you actually get more. When I give to you from my flame, the flame increases instead of decreasing. This represents your soul. The more you give, the happier and fuller you feel inside. If you notice, a candle's flame is always pointing upwards. You can turn it sideways, you can turn it upside down. That flame is always going to strive to connect upwards. And the flame of a candle is really your soul. It's the spark of godliness that's inside of each and every one of us. It's the part of us that wants to give, that wants to connect upward. So what's your soul made of? Well, there's a sentence in the Torah that says, God blew into Adam the breath of life. Do me a favor, take a deep breath. Now exhale. When you exhale, you are taking what was once inside of yourself and putting it out into the world, your breath. It uses the terminology in the Torah that God blew into Adam the breath of life because he was taking what was once inside his body and putting it into us. Your soul is literally a piece of God inside of you. So with that in mind, there's a beautiful story that I heard that someone asked a famous question. What do we learn from Auschwitz? So people say we learn we never forget, we learn to always remember. We learned something else too. We learned that 5 men can share 1 blanket. In Auschwitz, they gave every 5th guy a blanket. And that means that that person had the choice. Do I share this blanket or do I keep it for myself? Well, did you know that in Auschwitz, under the most torturous conditions, 90% of Jews decided to share their blanket. They decided to give, and they ended up getting more. Compassion is built into the DNA of every Jew. No matter how anyone in the world around us treats us, we can always choose an elevated response, a soul response. The world can try to say that we are rats. The world can try to dehumanize us. The world can say that we're committing genocide, but we know our choices, like sharing, like giving, like compassion. That's what makes us who we are, and no one can take away that greatness. We, as Jews, will always rise, no matter how the world treats us. And that's the message of why Jews light candles. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining our college and university and Our Ladies event. I'd like to personally thank Rabbi David Markowitz, Rabbi Yehuda Farber, Shabbos Kestenbaum, Robin Meyerson, Sylvia Wexler, and Laura Shaw Frank. You were all amazing, and you inspired me, and I'm sure you're inspiring all the other people who have joined us. And we all would like to welcome you to now light at 8 o'clock in your own time zone. And may our unity bring salvation for the Jewish people and bring Mashiach soon. And thank you all for joining us.